Hello, hello, hello. Happy Veterans Day to everyone out there. This is Tyler James with Comics Launch, and I'm excited to jump into a cool interview I have scheduled up and a great bunch of guests, or a killer twosome here. Let me bring on my guests. Today on the Comics Launch podcast, we have two of the veteran Kickstarter crowdfunders who have some of the longest running serialized comics on the platform. We have Mike Shea here, who is the writer and co-creator of Miskatonic High and Lady Lovecraft. And we have Kevin Joseph, who is best known for the series Tart, but also produces books like Underwars and Mort and the Poodles of Potter's Peak. Welcome, Mike and Kevin. How you guys doing today?
Good.
Yeah, appreciate you having us.
Yeah, thanks for spending the day off. That if you're a creator and a crowdfunder, you never actually really have a day off.
It's like an opening it's an opening to work on the comics instead of something else. It's like, oh yeah, I've got a day off. Now I can go to work.
Yeah, absolutely. So gentlemen, you guys have something cool going on right now. You have a project that I have not seen anything quite like this to launch on Kickstarter. It is a collaborative project. Want to tell the audience a little bit about, maybe start with Mike, because your project gets the lead here. But tell us a little bit about the Miskatonic High meets Tart trading card crossover project you have live on Kickstarter right now.
Yeah, so both Kevin and I have a long-running series, and we had talked in various ways about doing a crossover, or if you remember a couple years back, crossover prints became a big thing, where two projects would have their characters crossover on a print, and if you backed both projects, you would get a print that had both of them. And that sort of became an idea that we worked from, but we both wanted to kind of do more, but didn't want to go a normal, crossover issue series sort of thing. And so both of us are pretty creative guys. We like to do things that are outside the norm. And so came up with this idea of doing, instead of a print, doing trading cards and have the crossover happen on the trading cards. And we talked about it. There's, for people who remember a long time back, there was the Mars Attacks cards, where on the front would be this cool art of, these Martians attacking the United States. And on the back would be the story that people could follow if they wanted to. So, you can approach it as just trading cards and like it for the art, or you can also read the back and get the story. And so we thought that's kind of the cool next step from those crossover prints, is doing crossover trading cards. And so we worked on it, kept getting bigger and bigger, and now it's a 24 card set.
Yeah, and Kevin, so what was it about the card angle that appealed to you for this crossover?
You do all these things, and you're having fun doing what you always do. Making a comic, kickstarting a comic, fulfilling a comic, making the next comic. When Mike came to me with this idea, I was already working on a crossover with, our mutual friend, Will Allred. We're working on a straight up one-shot comic. And Mike said, I want to do it like this. And I was just like, oh, we could be Neil Armstrong. We could do something that I don't think anyone's ever done on the Kickstarter platform. Okay, let's do it. And it was actually quite difficult. So the first 3 weeks to a month, a lot of it was me continuing to ask Mike how we were doing this. He had an idea, he knew how to do it, and he almost had to lead me like a puppy through, the first obedience class to teach me how we were going to tell this story. And eventually I got it. And once I got it, it was just like sitting in this cool writer's room with just the two of us and picking apart, okay, this is the part of Miskatonic that I think is really cool. I'd like to highlight that. And this is the part of Miskatonic I don't understand. How can we explain that? And Mike did the same thing for the Toxic Fruit. So it was just the challenge was what made me excited to do it.
Yeah. So and am I right that there were a couple of models of card sets that you've seen do this sort of picture characters on the front, but narrative on the background, and you're trying to collect the whole story, I guess, as it were. Like
Right.
you had seen these before,
Right. So I had seen them before. Like I had seen the Mars Attacks cards. I had seen there was like a Batman series from the old Batman TV show. It was something that has really fallen out of favor. A lot of trading cards now on the back you'll get characteristics of the person. This is their strength level, this is their whatever, and really want to sort of do something different. We on Miskatonic High, we do trading cards as a regular sort of either stretch goal or regular giveaway, or part of a mystery pack or something like that. And so our backers really like those. And I knew that Kevin hadn't done a lot of that with Tart, so kind of saw this as an opportunity for, even if his backers or my backers didn't embrace the story on the back, they would like having trading cards of the characters.
right?
So it really sort of came at it from that angle, that there were a lot of different things about it that we liked, that we thought would work, and allowed the backers, the fans, to embrace the project however they want to. They don't have to enjoy it the way we're telling them to. They can get the full set. They can just collect a couple of cards. They can enjoy the front. They can read the back. It's really up to them.
Yeah. Now, you both have done plenty of Kickstarters, primarily comics focused. And when we sort of get into Kickstarter mode, a lot of times, especially for series, they're among the easiest things to set up because you can reuse so many assets. You've got a structure of, how you set up your rewards and common things that you can sort of copy paste. How did you find coming up with the reward tiers and the reward levels for a different sort of project like this?
The interesting thing about it was learning what we did differently and then finding either the middle ground or realizing the other person was right. It was a lot of me kind of trying to hold this Siberian Husky back. Mike is an uncontrollable energy monster. And, there were times where I was like, I think maybe we have too many tiers. And he's just like, I just like to give him a lot of options. And I was like, that's cool. That's cool. And so there's probably more tiers than I would have put in and fewer tiers than Mike would have put in, because we were finding that middle ground of, this is what you're really comfortable with, this is what I'm really comfortable with. So in that middle space, where's something that makes both of us happy? And then, of course, in any collaboration, the person who feels the most passionate should win the argument. And I think that's the way we came into making the tiers. We wanted to make sure that people had the option to just get the cards for a very low amount. And when I mean the cards, just a couple cards to start their adventure. So, there's a $3 tier, which is $6 with shipping, to get 6 cards. So you can support us and just get a couple cards. You can get the PDF right now for $5 and read the entire story. But after the campaign's over, we're not going to allow the PDF to be sold for at least 2 years. So if you want to read the story for $5, now is the time to do it. If you don't do it now, you got to find the cards in the next 2 years. And then we wanted to give people, our completionists, a chance to get the entire set right now, not have to worry about the hullabaloo of backing Mike and I for the next decade, hoping to get card number 13, which has eluded you. So we just tried to make it very much, if there's 10 backers, with 10 different ideas, we want at least 8 of them to come out really happy.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Kickstarter's done a great job with the add-on system to allow backers to really make the reward that they want now, as opposed to, earlier on when you were sort of forced to make a new reward every time somebody wanted something unique.
Right.
But, I've always found that if I'm a backer, how much time am I going to engage with the campaign materials? If I can find that reward I want, I'm just going to grab it and then go, as opposed to having to remake the thing. I like a lot of rewards for that. I know Kevin doesn't. And the great thing about working with Kevin, who's been on the platform for such a long time, is we both came with a wealth of experience, but also we weren't anxious about it. We'd been through it. We know what the pinch points are with Kickstarter. We know where the problem areas tend to be. So it's easier to say, yeah, no, you're right about this. Let's do it that way. And really, be able to trust the other one to know that they're talking from experience, that they really know what they're talking about.
Yeah. I'm not as familiar with like sort of the trading card game or side of things. I've produced trading cards, but usually when I do them, I do them more like you would making postcards. But I haven't played with things like the foil seals on the cards and things like that. How are you guys planning on like orchestrating the fulfillment side of things for things like these packs are getting 6 cards at random? Is that something a vendor that is doing for you? Are you guys planning on being the sorting machines and the yourselves, or how is that some of that logistics going to work for? Because we're a show for creators, right? And people are thinking,
if you're watching live or in a replay on YouTube, you're watching me smile. Because Mike has volunteered to do the fulfillment. So this is like hosting Thanksgiving and everyone coming to your house, and your brother-in-law is cooking the turkey, is carving the turkey, came up with the recipe for the turkey. Yeah, I basted it, and then he's going to deliver the turkey, and then half the people are going to come up to me and say, Kevin, thank you for hosting. And I'm going to say, you're welcome. But Mike is the MVP. He's going to be the fulfillment guy. So I'm going to let him take over on how he's going to do it. But that's why I'm smiling. And he said I was relaxed. That's why I'm relaxed.
That's why, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like fulfillment. I enjoy doing it. It's the last part of the making a comic or making a project come to life. There's a lot of people who think, okay, you do the writing, you do the art, you make the thing, and now unfortunately I have to do fulfillment. I kind of look at it differently. I get to do fulfillment. The backers have trusted us to make these things. This is my chance to make sure the last stage of it goes correctly. So yeah, no, I still do it all myself. I've been doing it for 24 issues now. Got a real process to it. If you look at our rewards, we have a lot of it is going to be full sets of cards. Yeah. And there's going to be about 2 or 3 different versions, depending on if you get the extra cards or not, because we have a few extra cards. We have a couple comic book versions, which was an opportunity for us to give you a comic book version with all the cards, 4 to a page, but then also behind the scenes of how we made the thing. And then also 2 different versions. One has Miskatonic High #1 in it. One has Tart #1 in it. Because we were really looking at it, if you remember. So again, the idea of a crossover print, the idea is to introduce a series to someone who maybe necessarily hasn't seen it before. And we really wanted to go with that idea throughout the story. So it's very simple for anybody to pick up who hasn't followed us, either one of us, but also the rewards the same way. So we're getting a chance to introduce you to the comic, so people who have backed Miskatonic High might see the regular artist Ryan Mendoza's cover, and it features the Tart characters. So a regular backer might want that because they like Ryan Mendoza's art. They get it, and inside of it is Tart #1. So it's an opportunity for them to see, to be introduced to Kevin's story. So we have comics, we have cards, we have sets. The real wrinkle is going to be doing those 6 card blister packs. But actually, I kind of like it because I'm going to get a heat sealer and get the little foil packs and stick them in there, and I'm excited about it. I'm a fulfillment geek, so that's me.
I think you should get one of those sticky feet and put the card 6 feet away and just flip and get 6, and that way it'll be perfectly random on what people get.
Yeah, it's I think there's a cool way, because when I jumped on here, but I hadn't seen that the the comic size edition to go with it, and that just makes sense, since one thing that you guys know is a lot of your backers are comic fans and they're familiar with that format and they're collectors, and so that's a smart way to do it. And I also like how, you know, the covers there that you've offered, they're you put them together and it makes one complete image. So, you know, again, appeal to the collectors out there. A lot of smart things here.
And a little bit of it was just respect of our co-creators. You know, Ludovic and Ryan didn't have time to do this at all. So it was like, can you guys do one cover? Ludo, can you draw the Miskatonic characters so that you can play and have fun? And Ryan, can you the Tart characters so you can play and have fun and be part of it, because they are our co-creators. They are the reason these exist. And Mike and I didn't want to do it. If they had said they couldn't do it, we would have done it without them. But we certainly wanted to give them something substantial to be part of the project.
Right. And once we knew that they weren't going to do all the cards, because that's sort of how we first approached this was, you know, can our artists do all the cards? And when they said no, it opened up the story in a new way. So we did the first version of this was going to be at a comic convention. And then once we knew that Ludo and Ryan weren't going to do it, we thought, okay, what if we approach this like a Tart issue? And one of the great things about the Tart issues are each one feels different. So it's a different setting, it's a different location, it's a different time. And the art adjusts to that. So if it's an old Western story, now the art looks like an old Western story. If it's you know, a 1600s colonial, it feels more wood printy. It's like that. Ludo does an amazing job with that. And so we thought, okay, well, what if we make this an anime convention? We can hire an anime artist to do all of our characters in anime style. So rather than seeing the Miskatonic High characters again by a new artist, but in the same format, what if we did it anime style to approach the anime story and really kind of opened up the story and the art in a way that was different from something we had done before and allowed for a lighter, more fun, more engaging sort of story than the sort of darker things that I know Tart does on a regular basis and we do on a regular basis. You know, it made it really fun for people to approach in a way. So it's, if you look at the cards, they're very bright, they're very colorful, they're anime style, and it allowed us to explore a different kind of story that was a lot of fun to do. And so with Ryan and Ludo's cover, then if you see, their covers come together to form one image, and it's a nice sort of establishing shot of this gigantic anime convention and all the craziness going on, so that when we get into the individual anime cards, it really allowed Benaki, our anime artist, to really focus on just one character rather than on a whole lot of backgrounds and what's going on there, to really make it feel like trading cards.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So since this is the first time I've had a chance to chat with Mike, you know, one of the things that we've talked a lot about on this show is just how probably one of the clearest paths to, you know, finding some success on Kickstarter is by focusing on one series or one primary series and serializing and trying to build that, not necessarily trying to hit a home run out the gate, but, you know, stacking up launches, stacking up wins. You know, it looks like you launched Miskatonic, I believe, in 2019.
Yeah, maybe 2018. I'm not entirely sure. It's been a long time.
I think I just checked the
yeah,
funding
okay.
on it, but you know, that was issue 1 5 years ago. You're already up to 24. Model of consistency that I think some of the major publishers would be envious of. What's you know, what are some tips that you might have for creators that are interested in getting and serializing on Kickstarter, and how do they do it in a way that they can keep coming back for more?
Right. So, you know, I do a lot of things, and there are a number of things about Tart that I admire that do the same thing, which is finding a way to do serial storytelling, but in a one-off approach. So we have kind of an X-File models monster of the week sort of thing. So each issue has one monster that the high school kids from Miskatonic High are dealing with. And you know that there's going to be a beginning, a middle, and an end to that story in each issue. So that, one of the things that I find really hard about Kickstarter comics is you'll get an issue and then you'll get a second issue 6 months later, and you have no recollection of what happened in issue 1. Half the comics, they don't include something that tells you what happened in issue 1. So you barely remember the characters, all of that. So make it easy for the readers to be able to digest your story and have a really fun experience with that one issue, and then make it easy for them with the next one to remember what they liked about that first one. I know Tart works very much the same way. It travels back to a time or a place and deals with that, usually in one issue, sometimes in 2 issues, if it's a really big story. And that's just an easy way to make it easy for your audience to digest your comic, to enjoy your comic. The other thing that I would say that we've had good success with, that I get people who email me and ask me, hey, how do I launch this comic book? How do I make this comic book a reality? Almost always I start off with, what is your elevator pitch? And they usually send me back 3 pages explaining what the elevator pitch is. And
where's that elevator going to?
Right. It's broken. And too many creators think about the world they're building, think about what they want to do rather than what the audience wants. Think about why you pick up comics. Usually the art attracts you, and there's something creative and clever that the comic is doing that's going to grab you. We really wanted to simplify it. It was, it was Lovecraft monsters, and it was high school comedy. Put those 2 things together, make it very simple for an audience to understand what exactly we're offering so that they can approach it. The art complements that with kind of an Archie kind of, classical style art. Everything tells you exactly what it's going to be when you pick it up. The more complicated you make it, the more complicated your elevator pitch is, the less you're focusing on why backers are going to even want to buy it, the more difficult you're making the project for yourself.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing is in terms of the prolificness of your ability to get these out there, is just finding an artist that is able to work at that kind of pace.
Right.
And anything that you want to say about what he's been able to do?
Yeah. I mean, Ryan Mendoza is the engine that makes Miskatonic High go. He's the co-creator. We didn't worry about rights or anything like that. We just said, okay, I'll do the writing and the lettering. You do the art and the coloring. We're going to split everything 50-50. We're just going to do this. Let's not fight over all the stupid stuff. The other thing is, sometimes stupid stuff helps you. When we came at it, we were just going to make the comic. We were going to do the first arc of the 6 issues. We were going to shop it around and find a publisher, and they were going to love it, and they were going to publish it. Yeah. And we made all 6 issues, sent it out to a bunch of indie publishers, and unsurprisingly, nobody wanted to publish something by 2 guys they had never heard of. Shocking. Yeah. And so we were either going to give up, or we were going to self-publish. And Ryan suggested, hey, check out Kickstarter. So we did, and we launched the first one. People liked it, and we had 5 other issues already in the bag. So, it was very easy to be able to do a comic every 2 to 3 months if you already have the art and everything already done.
Yeah. Can I ask a question, Mike?
Mm-hmm.
Is that how you were able to start your process of, like a $300 goal? Like, your goals are tiny, and you way overfund, and you have since the beginning, which is amazing. But right. Is that how you had the confidence to have such a low goal at the beginning?
Absolutely. So it was 2 things. So one was, we already had the art and everything done, so we don't need to raise the funding in order to produce that for that issue. The other thing was, print on demand has made it so easy to fund these things, because if you a lot of the print on demand places have such a small requirement, like say 25 issues before they're going to print, and they tell you, okay, it's going to be $2 per issue or whatever it is. So, I can have a $300 goal, because if we get the 25 people, it's going to be less than $300 to print those, to ship them. So therefore, I don't need a large goal, because I don't need a giant print run. I'm going to print exactly what I need for the audience for Kickstarter. That's, I don't know if you guys have found this. I don't sell a ton of back issues all at once. They slowly drip out as people want catch-up tiers more than anything else. But you run into a lot of creators who sell, let's say, 300 copies on Kickstarter and print 3,000, thinking, okay, I'll keep them in my basement. I'll sell them at cons or whatever it is. And then, 2 years from now, they have 2,500 of them still in their basement. One of the things that we really wanted to do was make cash flow very important. Don't overspend on all the things that you don't need, because the idea is, let's get to issue 2. Let's get to issue 3. Let's keep the cash flow moving so that we can then reprint later when we need to, rather than trying to do it now.
Does that mean, though, that like when you are getting, so you're on issue 24, I have to assume there are some catch-up tiers, people jumping in or catching up on a few Kickstarters that they missed. Like, are you, when you're printing, are you basically like, all right, well, I'm going to get 300, 500 of the new issues, but then I'm going to get two more of issue 14, a dozen of issue 10, or like, and
sometimes,
yeah.
Yeah, so it's more. You probably know this, is a lot of people are waiting for the trades. That's just the case, especially with something that's gone 24 issues. People are waiting for that, and we've done it on such a regular basis, every 6 or 7 issues or so, that they know to do it. So at this point, I know to print this many to last me the next 6 issues, because once I reach that, everybody's going to be buying the trade after that. So the issue, but at that point, I'll be selling 1 or 2 issues a year or 2 or something like that at that point.
Yeah. It's always, as someone that, after that big pickup or shipment, I currently now have 3 different storage lockers that are full to the brim, and a basement, and way too much stuff in the house. So yeah, over printing and just getting the print run right is something that is a challenge, and like, crazy enough, that first Kickstarter that I did in 2012 is the one that got me getting that storage locker the very first time. And I'm like, all right, I'll load this up with 3,000 hardcovers. And we'll go through this pretty quickly. And I believe after the last Kickstarter that I did last month, we will finally get down to like under 100 books of that initial run.
And
go ahead.
If someone's watching this who hasn't started their journey, both options have a lot of merit.
Yeah.
So what has worked for Mike and what has worked for Tyler are opposite.
Yeah.
But you need to look at your own circumstance and decide which thing might work for you better. I'm going to quote some guy who knows a little bit about Kickstarter. His name's Tyler James, and he said you can never print enough issue 1, and you can probably always print too many of subsequent issues. I personally find it more daunting to have to go and print on demand 25 new copies of Tart 14 or 11, because I'm out of those, than going into a room that is already part of my house and finding the box where 14 and 11 are in. So for me, it's more daunting on a psychological level to organize ordering more books for every Kickstarter. So I do like to over order, but I have learned as I've gone that calming down that over ordering is the best thing for us. Tyler and I, we met at New York Comic Con. I still have the trade paperbacks that I was selling in 2014, but that does calm me personally down that I have them and they're all paid for. So when I get $12 for one of those, it's now $12 profit, which is awesome.
Right. And there's something to that. So there's no one size fits all.
Yeah.
You know, if you're printing on demand, it's more expensive than if you're printing, you know, say 3,000 copies offset. You know, that's going to be a lower printing cost. But you have to think, okay, well, I'm putting my cash into those 3,000 copies, and now they're going to sit until they sell. You know, is it going to take me a year to sell them? Is it going to take me 3 years to sell them? How long is it going to take me to get that cash out? And for us, I mean, we do it differently than other people do. You know, we value a printer that moves quickly because we move quickly. You know, we're going to do an issue every 2 to 3 months because we are working that far ahead. But also, we need that cash flow to come in to be able to pay for Ryan so that Ryan can continue to make this his full-time job so that we can keep up the pace that we're at. You know, it's a machine. Every little piece works together. And if they don't work together, it's all going to fall apart. So there's no one size fits all. It really depends on what you want to do, how you want to do it, what makes business sense for you. Thinking about business sense, that's something that I learned from doing Kickstarter that I didn't think about. You know, I thought I was just writing a comic, and next thing I know, I need to know how many things to order, storage for it, how much shipping costs. You know, there's a lot of different muscles that you pick up from doing these things that you don't naturally have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess, I don't know, Kevin, if you have anything you want to add to, again, just around that topic of serialization, sort of keeping, whether it's keeping your team together or keeping your audience engaged over the time, especially when, you know, the release schedule might vary, and some years are more prolific than others. What have you found that's been able to have you keep things rolling with Tart?
I believe the nuts and bolts most important thing you can do in serialize a comic is fulfilling the comic that preceded it.
Yeah.
Going, like Mike says, he loves fulfillment because it's the last thing. I don't love fulfillment because it is the exact opposite of my skills as a human being. But I do know, and I do treat it as the most important part. I don't have to enjoy doing it. I have to know that this is the most functional way that I can get someone who backed me today to back me in 6 months or a year when the next book comes, because they can trust me to deliver on my promises. As a writer, I do really agree with Mike on making something that is substantial, a substantial meal in and of itself, in case it is the first time someone's read your book and it's number 9. You can't control when someone's first time in your world is. So you do want to give them a substantial meal so they feel satisfied. So the last time that they, tasted Tart, they enjoyed the process. The guy who promised he was going to deliver it, delivered it, and all of these things. And luckily we're a time travel story. So I get to put in little nuggets that don't mean much the first time you read it. But every time you circle back and read it, you get just a little bit more and a little bit more. And you realize, oh, wait, they were either thinking ahead or they made a mistake in issue 1 that they planted a seed that's going to pay off in issue 20. Not because we're smart, because we absolutely made a colossal mistake in issue 1. And we had an outline. So then I went up and, like 30 issues in, we're going to make ourselves look like geniuses. But it's just substantial story and deliver it is my ethos.
Yeah.
Right. And to be honest, probably both Kevin and I are outliers. Everything that you want to tell a new comic creator is do something small, do something short that you can deliver on. Do a 4-issue miniseries, do a 6-issue miniseries, do something that you can get to the ending to so that you can actually complete something and then move on from there. And both of us, in some ways probably mistakenly said, yeah, let's do a humongous series. Yeah. But one of the things that we both do to make it easy for the audience is, again, as Kevin was saying, that one digestible story per issue. I know there's a trend towards serialization of stories, to really writing for the trade or whatever it is. But Kickstarter is different. Kickstarter audiences, because they're getting a floppy issue, every 2 to 3 months for me, every 6 months, whatever it is, you can't write like that because the audience isn't going to remember. You're not writing on a schedule that they're going to be able to pick up on it. Plus, they're reading so much other stuff that they're going to forget what's going on with yours. So if you start thinking about making the floppy issue a priority, what makes for a great single floppy issue, and do everything you can to make that as great as it can be, then they're going to come back for 2. And as Kevin said, drop the little hints so you can do serialized storytelling, but do it smartly over time so that by issue 6, they've come with you all this way, and now it all blows up and you can see all the pieces that came together to make that issue.
Yeah, and I think that kind of is a challenge that some creators wrestle with, that especially those that are doing serialization. On the one hand, I look at what Kevin does with Tart, and sort of like his different issues sort of have different angles and different concepts that you're going to hit and lean into, and sort of like you're selling the story that's here. On the flip side, I look at like Rob Moltari. And he basically will reuse the pitch and the high concept for every subsequent issue. Right. But it's kind of like, if you're watching a Spider-Man cartoon or picking up an issue of Spider-Man, the very first thing you get is, hey, mild-mannered teenager bitten by radioactive spider, and and that's it. And so I think part of that will depend on, I guess, the story and the storytelling style that you're doing, because like in some ways I see it's a mistake when your Kickstarter high level pitch is when now that Tommy is fallen down a well, and Professor Jeeves has Indestructibots, and it's like, wait, like,
who's Tommy?
Who's Tommy? I have not read all of the other things, and most of the people that see that will not have read all of those things. So getting that balance right, I think, is good. But like I've also found with in putting together the campaigns for the series Sync, it's been fun for me to know that there are some hooks that work, but also for individual issues or things, there might be a compelling thing where, we've got a vampire angle for this particular thing. And maybe we can attract some people that wouldn't have jumped in but for that angle. And so, it's an interesting world.
I took a magazine publishing class in college. And one of the things that they taught is 80% of your magazine should be built for your subscribers and make them happy. And the other 20% should be colossally out of what your norm is, to pull just a couple outliers in who might enjoy the other 80% and become a subscriber. And so when I'm building my Kickstarters, it is a lot of, here is the high concept of the entire thing. Now here's this new thing we're doing this week, and here's this cool piece of art, with the hopes of welcoming something new in and assuring our old readers that it's still the book that they fell in love with. I do want to point out that what Mike said about us being outliers is, don't learn from us. Do learn from doing the short thing. We jumped out of the airplane and started packing our parachute. And just because we haven't died hitting the ground doesn't mean that is the right strategy. And you can have a 40 issue outline. Separated into 10 4-issue things that you can deliver, so that if your artist breaks his arm, you can take a year and a half off, and your audience still has the first 3 things done, and they can come back to you when he or she heals. But just because Mike and I have done it, it wasn't because we planned well. It was because we got out in front of our skis, and we didn't crash. There's trees everywhere, and we, and we're still going down the hill and hopefully picking up speed, which is also dangerous, so plan and listen to all of the things that Mike and I either ignored or we didn't know. It wasn't out there when we started to.
Hey, Kevin, I don't know if you did this. When we launched Miskatonic High, I talked before, we produced 6 issues. That was our first arc. And to be perfectly honest, we were prepared like that to be the end. Like if it had to be, there was a lot more we wanted to do, but there was enough in it that we sort of concluded a number of storylines and things like that that could be an acceptable ending. And so we sort of looked at it like, okay, if that's as far as we get, that's as far as we get. We want to do a lot more. Did you have an out for Tart? Like if things didn't work out, like you could say, okay, if we can get to issue 4, we've at least made something, and that readers will be happy with kind of like a conclusion.
No, we did not. We built in very specific, if we took a break for 3 years, the audience would feel like the story took a break, but we didn't. Our out is our out. And we started out with about a 42 issue outline, and then I learned what this process is, and I got it down to about 27 issues. If I could have cut down to 16 issues, we'd be done.
Yeah.
But if you have read issue 16, there is a point right there where we can take a year and a half and break, and the audience isn't going to feel like they need Tart right now while we take that break.
You didn't leave them on a cliffhanger.
Not this time. We left them with a defined, this answer is this answer. We're going to come back. Don't worry. But we don't have anything hanging. We did that issue 3. We did that issue 7. Less defined issue 12. There could have been a break. And now issue 16, a very defined, it's not a chapter break. It's like, in Lord of the Rings, the first one, there's book 1 and book 2. We kind of ended at book 1. We're coming back, but we can all rest too.
Yeah. And that's probably a good lesson for creators, which is cliffhangers are fine. Just make sure that you are prepared to have that issue out quickly, because if you have that year break in the middle of your cliffhanger, people aren't going to spend that whole year wondering what happened. They're going to be thinking, okay, I guess this issue isn't continuing, and sort of forgetting what came before.
Yeah.
Has been my experience anyway. That really, if you're going to do that, you want to follow it up very quickly.
And I will also say that the brilliant thing about a platform like Kickstarter is that even if you do make the mistake of having a series, leaving it open-ended, having a awful cliffhanger, and then taking 8-9 years, like last year, I brought back a series called Epic, and I mean, total cliffhanger for where we left things off on what was the 4th issue. And when we came back, we brought it back, and the one, like honestly, the nicest thing is we sold more catch-up tiers than we did the new issue. So the campaign itself was pretty good. So like, we are lucky that crowdfunding, as hard as it is, it can cover up a lot of mistakes. And it's cool that the audience, can be there for that. Yeah.
The Wednesday Warrior comic audience will not forgive you being a month late. The Kickstarter audience will not hold it against you.
Right.
If it takes 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years. Now, if you're really going to solidly build, like I've watched Mike do, a more rhythmic, you're going to get your book, and we're going to have another book on Kickstarter 2, 3 4 weeks after, and then we're going to deliver that. That's the way to build. Right. But the way to exist is to make the best book you can, fulfill it as soon as you can, and be cool like Fonzie while you're doing it.
Well, and you make the point about if you're overprinting issue 1 or whatever it is, that you're having these back issues. The best way that you're going to be selling your back issues is by having new issues come out and people wanting to fill in to find out what happened before. I see a lot of series that finish and then have a hard time selling back copies of those issues, because they don't have that promotion of you coming out and having a new issue. It really works that way. The best way that you can sell those back issues is by continuing to make your comic and selling those back issues.
And Tyler, I'm going to ask you a question with Sync, because
Yeah.
my reading of Sync is it has a pretty defined ending for most single issues. It's kind of, we're following, this character through this thing, but it's kind of defined. Whether they survive or not is up to John Lees. But have you found, and I've kind of almost forgotten my question, but have you found, where did you find in Sync that you started, that catch-up tier started being like a rocket boost for the series? I felt like it took to Tart 6 before those catch-up tiers started just being a push for the campaign, before it was a couple. Where did you see that with Sync at any point?
Well, so Sync has been an interesting one because what we chose to launch was, at least from a crowdfunding perspective, was we launched Sync issue 1, then we launched the trade collection that included the trade and the hardcover, and then we didn't come back to Kickstarter until volume 2 trade was ready. And it wasn't until we got into issue 11 and the 3rd volume that we decided to also use Kickstarter in between for smaller content. And so we did a launch for issue 11. And then we did a issue 12, 13 combo book and issue 14, 15 combo book. Now, what I'm not sure is going to happen is what's going to happen when we launch the 3rd volume. Because prior to that, like both volume 2 and volume 1 did very well, but most of those stories had never been collected and offered on Kickstarter. So we'll see how that volume launch stacks up. But the reason we weren't doing that is because we were really relying on the direct market, and Sync actually did have a really strong, at least comparatively for us, for Comics Tribe, direct market presence. For at least the first volume of those things. And I think that kind of helped with the collectability. So we did with our campaigns, we've always offered like the usual catch-up tier is with the trades, but we also offer the single issue catch-up tier. And there are some people that definitely want those as well. Yeah. So it's been a part of it, I think, since the very beginning, but it definitely, and it helps that people are trying to build their collections and collect every cover and things like that. That's definitely a big thing. But we'll see how the 3rd volume comes, because I mean, like, especially looking at where the direct market is and Diamond is, our sales, our direct market sales have cut significantly. Part of that is a long layoff too, so you lose momentum. But then also just Diamond comic shops, they're in a different spot here post pandemic. And so like the direct market is almost like, I'm almost looking at it as marketing, like at this point. But one thing that I'm interested to see is, so we've got this direct market version that's going out. Those are $5 books basically to comic book shops. But they're different covers than we've offered through the Kickstarters. So when I launch the next one, will we sell a lot of sets of like the direct market to Kickstarter that are already paid for and have been going out to comic shops, and pricing. Like in a lot of ways, going direct to Kickstarter and only in primary just focus on Kickstarter, it saves you a lot of headaches of like, how much am I pricing these books for? Because it makes no sense to price books at Kickstarter at the same as you would price them at a comic book shop, because the market will bear a higher price, and it makes it a lot tougher to make it profitable. And on the flip side, though, like a $15 floppy is not going to fly at your local comic book shop. And so, we've been navigating that has definitely been difficult, but we've definitely made the shift towards like primary audience is the direct audience. It's Kickstarter backers. They're getting the deluxe versions, the extra size, the cool collectibles, the limited runs, and the direct market will be kind of a different version.
Yeah.
That's sort of what we landed on.
Yeah, there's a lot of business stuff that people don't think about in terms of comic creators, especially on Kickstarter. They think, okay, you're just, I want to write a comic, I want to make a comic, I want to find an artist, I want to put this thing out, and there's really no thought beyond the business side of that, which you really don't get into until you start doing it for a long time. Like you were talking about the floppies and then the trade. Will the trade sell as much? On Miskatonic High, I've always looked at it as bites at the apple, so the floppies are our first bite at the apple. We produce the art, for it. We produce the story for it. We sell it. It probably breaks even. We don't really make a lot of money on the issues. Sometimes we lose a little money. Sometimes we make a little money on the issues. But then I don't have to produce new art when I do the trade. I'm producing a new cover. We usually do a short story to add into it, so it's not a big expense to do the trade. And so most of it is the floppy issues, the art that we've already produced in it, so that when I'm selling it, there's a much higher profit margin for the trades after that. So that's a big thing for us. Like if we didn't do both the floppies and the trade, it would be so much harder for us business wise to be making this thing the way we are.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, let's be honest, it would be a lot harder for the Marvels, the DCs, the Images of the world to do what they do without having multiple bites at the apple. I think Robert Kirkman is probably the best person in the history of the universe at getting as many bites of the apple for his independently created stuff as humanly possible, and it still seems to work. So there is a lot of that, and I'm looking at where I'm at with different projects and things, and sometimes the challenges. What's fun is the challenges never go away, and so the opportunities improve and increase. But again, so with Sync, I'll have now it's like, all right, reprinting trades becomes a really annoying thing, because again, the volume of cost goes down significantly when you print at scale, and the reverse happens, especially as those books get thicker. They've got a spine, like those are more expensive. So a lot of times it's like, all right, do I bite the bullet and do another 1,000? And but as you said, that's pulling capital out, and just finding ways to make the math work is, as you said, these are business things that but you didn't necessarily sign up for. But
every other podcast, this would be really boring, but for your podcast, this is super important. And anybody listening is probably like jotting all this down. And one of the things I'll say is I've made about every mistake you can make in the 10 years I've been doing it. The only thing I'm good at is not repeating the same mistake. I like to make new and more interesting mistakes as I go. So don't beat yourself up for a mistake. Beat yourself up for making the same mistake twice or 3 times.
If we can talk about this for a little bit. So there's a lot of business decisions that go into Kickstarter and making comic books and all of that. And the great thing about being a creator who is doing that is there's also opportunity. So, again, Kevin and I approached this as a promotional opportunity. It was going to be a print, and then it expanded to be trading cards. And then we saw an opportunity to turn it into a story, to turn it into a narrative, to turn it into something new that the audience would embrace like a story. The great thing about being creators, about being the business, about being the publisher, about being everything, is that yes, there are headaches with the business side of it, but there's also lots of opportunities with the business side of it to do things in ways that a normal publisher would say, no, absolutely not. We're not going to go into trading card story publishing so that you can publish another publisher's comic book. Are you kidding? No, we're not doing that. And nobody is here to tell Kevin and me no. So we did it. So we, and it's fun and it's different. And the thing that I would tell people is, yes, there's a lot of business decisions to be made. There's a lot of weird muscles that you're going to do, but don't be afraid to be creative. Creativity is the one thing that you have that the big publishers don't have. Your creativity, what you can do that's different and unique and that fans are going to respond to. Lean into that, because that's why people come to Kickstarter. That's why they are willing to pay more for the things that we make, because they are different, they're unique, they're creative, they have a singular voice to them that they're not finding anywhere else. So don't be afraid of that. Lean into that. Be, as Kevin said, make the mistakes, but make interesting mistakes. Make an anime style trading card crossover with another comic that's completely unlike anything as anybody has ever seen before, and do it. Just go hog wild with it and have fun with it. Because if you're having fun, probably the people who are following you are going to have fun with it too.
Yeah, David Bishop, who's the artist who did Morte with me, my email to him started out with the 9 reasons he should say no to my pitch. And then I said, here's the reason I think maybe you'd be interested in the book. And we made that book with the knowledge that there might be 9 people in the world that would like it.
Yeah.
It is one of the books. I got an email 3 weeks ago, or an Instagram message 3 weeks ago. Someone happened upon it in a comic shop. I didn't even know they were still out in comic shops. and said that book touched them 4 years later, 5 years later. And it's just like, take your chances. Do something that, even if it is a colossal failure, you're happy you did.
Yeah, absolutely. And to jump on that, when we decided to bring Miskatonic High to Kickstarter, I thought, okay, the real Lovecraftian fans are going to hate that we're making, that we're sort of winking at it and turning it into a high school comedy. We figured high school comedy people are going to hate that we're bringing Lovecraft into this thing. We're going to sell 15 copies. You asked me why we only have a $300 goal. I didn't even know we were going to make $300 on the first issue. I really didn't. I thought nobody was going to like it. It was going to be too niche for anybody. And the thing is, we just had fun with it. We made the story that we wanted to make. We found ways to really enjoy it and bring the fun out of it and make it, laugh at it, but also have it be a horror story. And we just did it. And the fans, the backers responded to it. They will respond to your enthusiasm if you make it easy for them to understand why they should be enthusiastic about it. We were blown away. People just showed up and started backing the issue. And we were like, who are these people? They're not my family. Why are they here?
Yeah, that is one of the coolest things about it, when you start seeing names that you're not even, you never heard of them, from places that you've never been to. It's a special thing.
And eventually you start eventually seeing those names a 4th time, a 5th time, a 6th time. And, there's this guy, in Michigan who I've never met, and I see his name and I'm like, Rick's back. That's great.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, so great to see Rick again. So great to see Vicky in Canada. And, it's just these Stormquist and Australia who backs both of us. It's just like, wow, these people are like, they're not our family, but they're our family.
Right.
They're with us. And it's a beautiful thing on an emotional level to see that. It's a great thing on a business financial level to see it, because without them, you die.
Right.
But on an emotional level, it's like 3 months later when you're up at 1 a.m. Checking the art to the script, and all you want to do is go to sleep. But those people who've been with you are waiting for the next issue. Right. And all of a sudden you can get through checking that script because of the emotional support that these people who've never met you give you over and over and over again.
Right. And whenever you can give it back to them, like, that's something that I have felt very strongly about since we started, is anytime that you can say thank you in any way that you can say thank you, do it, because these people do not owe you anything. They don't have to come back and get your next issue. They don't have to like the issue that they did. They don't have to share the things that you post on social media. They're doing it because they like it and they embrace it, and thank them. One of the things that we did, again, we're a high school comedy, Lovecraftian high school comedy. So there's sort of avenues for us to go to that are interesting. And one of the things we did was we did a yearbook, and we told backers, send us your image, whether it's a photo or a drawing or just something crazy you find on the internet. You can be, a senior in this yearbook. Have your name in there, have your senior quote in there. And so it's a good, 8 or 9 pages where it's just the backers who are in there. Because what we wanted to do was we wanted to create and honor this community that came together and allow us to do this, to make them feel like they're really a part of it. Because again, it's like Kevin is saying, these things don't exist without these people embracing it. And so we wanted to find something to give back to them. And again, we didn't have a publisher who said, no, you cannot put random people's pictures in the comic and continue to sell it. Are you stupid? Yes, we're stupid, but the good thing is we don't have anybody telling us no.
Yeah, no, and that kind of creativity definitely does get rewarded. I just last week sent out all of these cameo prints that we made for backers that we really treated it as like, hey, this is like a sponsorship level. So like, not only you'll be listed as a producer sponsor in the front of the book, and then you'll also have a cameo in the book. And we were able to sell those spots for the entire, or pre-sell those spots for the entire volume 3 of Sync. And then we even came up with a reward for someone that would, have his own cameo in every issue of volume 3. And, it's a big investment. It's that we put it up there, but it's really cool that people will be that engaged in the book. And it's like having that investment in the series definitely makes it stand out and makes it special. So I think
having read a lot of issues of Sync, I think that I might do that in Epic. I don't know that I trust John Lees with my image.
So one of the things that or one of the best parts, and this also speaks to like the power of writing ahead, is John is or has been like 10 issues script wise ahead of where Alex has been drawing. So and this is also like a little bonus, rather than saying, hey, you can be a cameo, or you get a cameo in that, which people like cameo background. Like what we actually did is we went into the script and found like roles that would be cool. So it was like, you get to be a killer, we're going to turn you into a killer Boo Van Clown, or like, oh, here we have a spot for a terrible teacher. And like, I'm a teacher. Like it'd be fun to be the teacher in Sync, or a pub patron or whatever, and made it specific so that people, and these are one of one things, so people were able to like, oh, this is open, and that sounds like the one that the cameo that I want. And so that's a benefit of being so far ahead, and I'll probably do that for because we're going to launch the trade for volume 3. We also have a Mr. Dig plush toy, which so that's one of the ways. That's one of the ways we're mitigating the. Well, we've already, all of these stories have been launched on Kickstarter before. Well, we do have this highly collectible thing that we're going to launch alongside it. That hopefully, even if you don't want to come back to get the trade collection because you have the floppies, well, we got to get this thing.
I think you're going to need another storage place if you're doing a Mr. Dig plushie. I think you're going to need another spot.
Yeah. Well, hopefully Christmas sales are good, and I'll at least clear up some space. But so like I can go ahead for volume 4 and find those spots and those cameos, and then probably run that back for the next launch.
It speaks to sort of, again, thinking the great thing about this audience is you can talk about creative, but you can also talk about the business, is merchandise. So that's a big thing with a lot of comics. And we do some of that. We don't do big things like a plush because, there's a large expense there. But one of the things that we have success with is doing small pieces of it. Again, because we do so many issues, we do so many Kickstarter campaigns, we can do a small acrylic figure, acrylic standee, and we can do one character, and it's going to be for this issue, and then next issue we do the next one, and by the time
in here,
yeah, exactly like that. Except for, so each one is different, and so that by issue 6 or issue 12 or whatever it is, you have 6 of them, and now you have a set, and the backer didn't have to pay $50, whatever it is, for the entire set all at once. They sort of spread it out by adding $6 onto this campaign, or $8 onto that campaign. So there's a way for creators to do merch without going overboard, because I've seen a lot of creators sort of go overboard and get really excited about doing lots of merch all at once. And there's another way to do it, which is to do it small, do one piece now, do the next piece the next issue, and the next piece the next campaign, and build up to it the same way that you're building up a story.
Yeah, I think that's definitely key. And for the plush toys that we've been able to do, like we wouldn't have been able to do them if we weren't able to open up that the sales channel that Amazon is, and have it be like, oh, these are products that sell every week,
right,
and that we can turn over. Otherwise, those storage lockers get filled up pretty fast.
Yeah, the book in the series has to come first. The merchandise has to come after, if you do the merchandise.
Right.
Yeah.
And you don't. That's the other thing, is there's a lot of creators who don't do merchandise, and they do perfectly fine. I always think about it when we do merch, because we try not to go too crazy doing it, because there's a monetary cost to it, but there's also a time and a creative cost to it. Yeah. Any time that I'm spent trying to make this merch item, designing it, talking with vendors, whatever it is, that's time that I'm not doing the comic. That's time that I'm away from scripting, or that I'm away from writing, lettering, or whatever it is. So account for that. So if you don't want to do merch, you don't have to. Just focus on what you want to do.
Yeah, and then creating a feedback loop with your audience of like, rather than one of the simplest pieces of marketing advice out there is ask people what they want, ask your people what they want, and then sell it to them. And lo and behold, that's usually will serve you well, and it'll serve you a lot better than just like taking random flyers from time to time. Although that's one skill, and then the other skill is like, if you are passionate about something, like this trading card idea that you guys have come up with, as you said, you saw that cards with the Kickstarters was something that the audience seemed to respond to, but now let's take it up a notch and be really excited about it and be passionate about it, and that passion will then be contagious.
And incredibly honestly, we couldn't ask our audience if they wanted this, because we knew this was going to be a slow process.
Right.
And we were afraid, if we said a year and a half ago, this is what we were going to do, some much faster creators were going to have a card set crossover before we came. So we were super secretive. We were like, the recipe of Coke about this for the last 2 years as we worked on it. We only started telling people it was coming, 4 weeks ago?
Yeah, something like that. Well, and that's the other thing is, a lot of people want to talk about what they're creating right now. There's a million things that can go wrong with it. That it might not come out for a year and a half. It might not ever come out because your artist could ghost you. You could do this. Whatever the thing is, there's lots of reasons that creative endeavors fail. So I'm, and unfortunately Kevin was the same way. Neither of us wanted to talk about this until we were absolutely sure that it was ready to go, that we had everything produced. Like right now, I never go into a campaign if I don't have all of the materials all ready to go to print. It's just, I've gone through a couple of campaigns where I didn't, and at the end I sweated bullets, waiting for that art to come in, waiting for that thing to come in. And it's a terrible experience. So now it's like, I want everything ready so that when we go into it and come out of it, I can go straight into production and fulfillment. That's the way to do it. And so, don't do promotion on it until you have everything ready, until you have the images ready, until you have really your elevator pitch ready for what it is and why people should embrace it.
Absolutely. Well, gents, I could probably keep you here chatting business and comics and everything in between all day, but I'm gonna relieve my wife of the extra child duty in just a bit and get some lunch.
Understood.
But I want to thank you for doing something cool, doing something unique on the platform, and glad to see people responding to it. 10 days to go with this epic crossover trading card set. What anything else that you guys are hoping to get done before the end of the year? I know Mike also has a live project right now, the latest Miskatonic issue 24. You want to get a quick pitch in for that, Mike?
So this is issue 24. It's the second issue of our fourth arc. But it's a standalone story. We have one of our characters and another attend the winter carnival, and they end up at a freak show where one of them recognizes one of the freaks and decides to break her out. It's a rat thing. So in Lovecraftian lore, there is people tend to devolve into wild animals, and so a rat thing is a person who is devolved into this sort of animal-like creature. And so she recognizes it, breaks it out, and next thing she knows, she's caught between bloodthirsty rat things and some not very nice carnies. And the ending is a surprise. You think you know where it's going. We get that a lot. A lot of people think, okay, they're going to come to this and know exactly where we're going, and we don't tend to go there. We tend to go someplace very different. So I'm not going to spoil the ending, but rat things versus carnies. And the great thing is, because we're doing this issue at the same time, I can fulfill both this and the card set at the same time. But also there's an opportunity for anybody who wants to get the card set and this, that we can go ahead and save them on shipping. So they can combine shipping on both, and I can ship both out at the same time in the same package.
Nice. And Kevin, anything you want to plug?
Tart 16 was just fulfilled. And like I said, there's a break there. The next thing will almost certainly be the hardcover collection of issues 13, 14, 15, and 16. Checking behind the scenes to see if it can be fast forwarded. If it is, that might happen very soon. And if it can't, probably go back to our plan was to do it in spring. So we're just going to see if it can be fast tracked. There are some tariffs that might be coming that I might be trying to beat, but I don't know if it's possible at this point to beat them.
Yeah, we'll all be watching with bated breath on how that all shakes out. Well, gents, appreciate you taking the time and sharing expertise and having a great conversation for all the creators out there. Best of luck with this launch and everything else that you have coming. Thanks for coming on Comics Launch.
Just always appreciate you giving us your time and experience and wisdom. And I'm still doing this because of some little thing called Comics Launch Pro. So I appreciate it.
Yep, you are the godfather of Kickstarter comics.
Oh man, I got the white hair to prove it now. And the beard,
yeah,
but,
it's funny how I'm a lot more gray than when I started doing Kickstarter.
I think there's a correlation there.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Well, thanks everybody else out there watching. We can't wait to see what y'all launch next. Take care.
Thank you.
Good night.